Last winter, a 74-year-old man in rural Montana kept his entire house warm for 3 straight nights. No electricity, no gas, no firewood. His total cost? $1. And when his neighbor asked how he did it, the man just smiled and pointed to a bag of charcoal sitting in the corner. Now, before you click away thinking this is some kind of joke, stay with me. Because what this man figured out is something that millions of people in developing countries have known for decades, something that off-grid survivalists have quietly used for years, and something that your average American family could use right now to cut their heating bill dramatically or survive a complete power outage without freezing to death. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what you're about to learn. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will look at a simple bag of charcoal very differently than you did 5 minutes ago. If you're new here, this channel is called Boring Economic Update. And yes, the name is intentional. We don't do flashy, we don't do hype. We talk about real, practical economic realities that affect everyday people. Things like energy costs, survival preparedness, and the kind of common sense knowledge that used to get passed down from generation to generation, but somehow got lost along the way. If that sounds useful to you, hit that subscribe button right now. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and every single video on this channel is designed to give you something genuinely useful. Now let's get into it. So let's talk about heat, real heat. The kind that matters when it's minus 10 degrees outside, the power is out, and your family is sitting in the dark, wearing every piece of clothing they own. Most people in that situation would panic, most people would have no plan, and that's not because they're stupid, it's because nobody ever taught them what to do. The modern world made us dependent on systems we don't control. Electric heaters, gas furnaces, smart thermostats, all of it works perfectly fine until the moment it doesn't, and when it stops working, people freeze, literally. Now here is where charcoal enters the picture. And I want to be very clear before we go any further. We are talking about outdoor charcoal, the kind you use in a barbecue grill. We are not talking about burning charcoal inside a closed room without ventilation. That is dangerous. That can kill you. Carbon monoxide is invisible, odorless, and deadly. So everything we discuss in this video is about using charcoal safely with the right setup, the right ventilation, and the right approach. If you skip the safety part, you turn a survival tool into a serious hazard. So pay attention to every single detail as we go through this. With that said, let's talk about why charcoal is one of the most underrated heat sources available to the average person today. A standard bag of charcoal, the kind you can pick up at any gas station, grocery store, or dollar store, costs somewhere between $1 and $3. A single pound of charcoal, when burned correctly, can generate a surprising amount of heat for an extended period of time. We're not talking about a quick flash of warmth that disappears in 20 minutes. We're talking about slow, sustained, manageable heat that can last for hours depending on how you use it. Think about that for a second. In a world where home heating costs have risen significantly over the past several years, where natural gas prices swing wildly with global markets, where electricity rates in some parts of the country have gone up 30, 40, even 50%, a $1 bag of charcoal sitting in your garage starts to look a lot more interesting. Not as a replacement for your regular heating system, but as a backup, as an emergency option, as something that could genuinely protect your family on the worst night of the year. Here's what most people don't realize about charcoal. It's essentially concentrated wood energy. When wood is burned slowly without oxygen, it transforms into charcoal, a material that is almost entirely carbon. And carbon burns hot. Carbon burns clean compared to raw wood. Carbon burns long. Ancient civilizations understood this. Blacksmiths understood this. And survivalists today understand this. The energy density of charcoal is genuinely impressive for how cheap and widely available it is. You can find it almost anywhere in the world at almost any time of year for almost nothing. Now you might be wondering, okay, so charcoal is energy dense and cheap. But how does $1 of charcoal actually keep you warm all night? What's the trick? What's the setup? That is exactly what we are going to break down in complete detail. And I want you to stay with me because the method matters just as much as the material. You can have the right fuel and still do it completely wrong. The people who have mastered this, the off-grid homesteaders, the disaster preparedness experts, the people who live in areas where power outages are just a normal part of life, they follow a specific approach. And that approach is what turns a basic bag of charcoal into a genuine all-night heat solution. We're going to get into all of it, the type of charcoal that works best, the container setup, the airflow equation, the safety measures that are absolutely non-negotiable, and the surprising ways people have used this method in real emergency situations across the country. It's all coming up, and trust me, you want to see where this goes. Let's start with the basics. Not everyone thinks about charcoal the same way. If you grew up in the suburbs, charcoal probably means summer barbecues, backyard cookouts, and the smell of lighter fluid on a Saturday afternoon. But if you grew up in a rural area or in a country where energy infrastructure is unreliable, charcoal means something completely different. It means warmth. It means cooking when the grid goes down. It means survival, in the most literal sense of the word. And the gap between those two worlds, the people who see charcoal as a luxury item for grilling steaks and the people who see it as the essential survival resource, that gap is exactly where this conversation lives. So let's close that gap right now. The first thing you need to understand is that not all charcoal is created equal. There are two main types available in the American market. The first is briquettes, the compressed, uniform blocks that you see in most grocery stores. They're made from a mixture of charcoal dust, coal, starch binders, and sometimes chemical additives to help them light faster. The second type is lump charcoal, which is pure hardwood that has been charred down to its carbon form without any additives or binders. It looks irregular, chunky, and natural, because that's exactly what it is. For survival heating purposes, lump charcoal is the better option. It burns hotter, it burns cleaner, and it doesn't release the chemical fumes that some briquettes can produce when they first ignite. However, and this is important, lump charcoal is slightly more expensive and slightly harder to find in small rural towns or dollar stores. Briquettes, on the other hand, are everywhere. And if briquettes are what you have access to, they absolutely can work. You just need to let them fully ash over before using them in an enclosed or semi-enclosed heating setup. That initial chemical burn-off phase is the dangerous part. Once the briquettes are fully lit, glowing orange and covered in white ash, that's when they're burning at their cleanest and most efficient. Now let's talk about the setup, because the charcoal itself is only half the equation. The other half is how you contain it, direct the heat, and manage the airflow. This is where most people go wrong when they try to improvise a heating solution in an emergency. They think more fire means more heat. They pile on fuel, restrict the airflow, and end up with a smoldering, smoky mess that produces more carbon monoxide than warmth. That is the wrong approach, and it's the approach that has caused tragedies. The right approach is controlled combustion. Small amount of fuel, proper airflow, correct container, correct placement. Let's walk through each of these. For the container, the most commonly used option among off-grid survivalists is a simple terracotta flower pot setup. Yes, you read that right. A clay flower pot. Specifically, the method involves taking a large terracotta pot, placing a smaller terracotta pot inside it, and using the space between the two pots to trap and radiate heat outward. A small metal rack or a few bricks can elevate the inner pot slightly to allow airflow underneath. The charcoal goes in the inner pot, burns slowly, and the clay absorbs and radiates the heat in a steady, even way that metal alone cannot replicate. Clay is a natural heat battery. It soaks up warmth and releases it gradually, which is exactly what you want on a long, cold night. Now, some people use a metal hibachi grill, a small cast iron pot, or even a basic metal coffee can with holes punched in the sides for airflow. All of these can work. The key principle is the same regardless of the container. You need something that holds the charcoal securely, allows enough oxygen in to maintain a steady burn, and directs the heat outward rather than letting it escape straight up into the air. Here's the airflow equation in simple terms. Fire needs oxygen to burn. Too little oxygen, and the charcoal smolders, burns inefficiently, and produces significantly more carbon monoxide than a clean hot burn. Too much oxygen, and the charcoal burns too fast, wastes fuel, and spikes the heat instead of sustaining it. The goal is a steady, moderate airflow that keeps the charcoal burning at a controlled rate. Small holes or gaps at the base of your container allow air in. The heat and exhaust rise naturally. This is basic combustion science, and getting it right makes the difference between a heating setup that lasts all night and one that burns out in 2 hours. The amount of charcoal you actually need is surprisingly small. Experienced off-grid users report that somewhere between 6 and 10 briquettes, or an equivalent small handful of lump charcoal, is enough to generate meaningful heat for a contained space for several hours. Some people use slightly more for larger spaces or colder temperatures, but the consistent finding across multiple survival communities and off-grid forums is that you don't need nearly as much charcoal as you'd intuitively think. The efficiency comes from the setup, not from piling on fuel. This is also why the $1 price point is realistic. A small bag of charcoal contains far more heating sessions than most people expect. Now let's talk about ventilation, because this is the part that absolutely cannot be skipped. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a real and serious risk with any kind of combustion indoors. Charcoal produces carbon monoxide as it burns. In a completely sealed, airtight room, even a small amount of charcoal burning for a short time can reach dangerous concentration levels. This is not something to take lightly or skip past quickly. People have died from carbon monoxide poisoning while trying to stay warm. That is a real tragedy, and it's entirely preventable with the right precautions. The rule is simple. You always need ventilation. A cracked window, a slightly open door, a vent or gap that allows fresh air to move into the space and stale air, along with combustion gases, to move out. This does not mean you have to leave a window wide open and lose all your heat. It means you need a controlled, intentional airflow path through the space. Many experienced users also strongly recommend having a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector running anytime you use this method. These detectors are inexpensive, widely available, and can alert you to dangerous gas levels before they become life-threatening. A carbon monoxide detector next to a charcoal heating setup is not optional. It is essential. With ventilation handled correctly, the risk drops dramatically, and what you're left with is a genuinely effective, remarkably affordable heat source that can get a family through a long, cold night. People who live in areas with frequent winter power outages, parts of the Midwest, the Mountain West, rural New England, have discovered this. People in developing countries where electricity is unreliable have known this for generations. And now you know it too, but here's where it gets even more interesting, because the charcoal method is just one layer of a much larger picture. When you combine it with the right insulation strategy, the right room selection, and a few other low-cost tools, the effectiveness multiplies. And that combination is what takes this from a basic survival tip to a complete, practical, real-world heating plan that almost anyone can put together for under $20 total. That's exactly where we're going next. Let's talk about the full picture, because knowing about charcoal and knowing how to build a complete emergency heating system around it are two very different things. And this is the part that most survival videos skip over. They give you one tip, one trick, one piece of the puzzle, and then leave you to figure out the rest on your own. That's not what we do here. So let's put the whole thing together, piece by piece, in a way that actually makes sense for a real family in a real emergency situation. The first thing experienced off-grid people will tell you is this: the room matters as much as the heat source. When your heating system fails in the middle of winter, your instinct might be to try to heat the whole house. Resist that instinct. A large house with high ceilings, multiple rooms, and poorly insulated walls will drain any heat source fast, whether that's a charcoal setup, a wood stove, or anything else. The smarter move is to pick one room. The smallest room that your family can reasonably occupy together. A bedroom works well. An interior room with fewer exterior walls works even better. The less surface area exposed to the outside cold, the less heat you need to generate and maintain. Once you've chosen your room, the next step is sealing it. Not permanently, just temporarily, for the duration of the cold event. Draft stoppers along the bottom of the door. Towels or blankets stuffed into gaps around windows. Heavy curtains or blankets hung over windows to reduce cold air seeping through the glass. If you have moving blankets, the thick ones used for furniture, hanging one over a window, can reduce heat loss dramatically compared to a standard curtain. None of this costs much. Most of it you already have somewhere in your house. But the difference it makes to heat retention is significant. You are essentially turning one room into a much more manageable thermal pocket, a small, well-insulated space that a modest heat source can actually warm and maintain. Now place your charcoal setup in that room, with your ventilation path established, your carbon monoxide detector running, and your small controlled burn going. What you will find, especially if you have done a good job sealing the room, is that the temperature in that space rises and holds in a way that feels almost surprising given how little fuel you are using. This is the compounding effect of doing multiple things right at the same time. Good insulation plus controlled heat plus a small space equals a genuinely livable temperature even when it is brutally cold outside. The next layer is body heat. This sounds almost too simple to mention, but it is one of the most powerful and underused tools in any cold weather survival situation. Human bodies generate a significant amount of heat. Multiple people in a small sealed room raise the temperature noticeably. Add sleeping bags, heavy blankets, and layered clothing, and your body becomes its own heating unit working alongside the charcoal setup. Experienced cold weather campers and mountaineers understand this deeply. They know that gear and fuel are important, but the human body's ability to generate and retain heat is the foundation everything else builds on. In a home emergency, the same principle applies. Keep people together, keep them covered, keep them moving slightly if the temperature drops, and the charcoal setup needs to do far less work than it would if people were spread across a cold house doing nothing to conserve their own warmth. Now let's talk about duration. A properly managed charcoal setup in a well-insulated small room, combined with body heat and good blankets, can realistically maintain a survivable temperature through a long winter night with a very modest amount of fuel. The exact numbers depend on too many variables to state precisely. Outside temperature, room size, insulation quality, number of people, type of charcoal, container setup. But the consistent experience reported by people who have actually done this, not in theory but in real emergency situations, is that it works. It is not luxurious. It is not as comfortable as a central heating system running at full power, but it is warm enough, and warm enough is everything when the alternative is dangerously cold. There is also an important economic angle to all of this that fits squarely in what this channel is about. Heating costs in the United States have been rising steadily. Natural gas prices fluctuate with global supply chains and geopolitical events. Electricity rates in many states have increased significantly over the past 5 years. For families already stretched thin financially, a heating emergency is not just physically dangerous, it is financially devastating. Emergency hotel stays, burst pipes from frozen water lines, health costs from cold-related illness. The downstream cost of being unprepared for a heating failure can run into thousands of dollars. Against that backdrop, spending $10 to $20 on a basic emergency heating kit, a bag of charcoal, a terracotta pot setup, a carbon monoxide detector, and a few draft stoppers is not just practical. It is one of the highest return preparedness investments a family can make. And here is something worth sitting with for a moment. The knowledge we talked about in this video is not new. It is not exotic. It is not the product of some secret research or hidden expertise. It is the kind of practical, accumulated wisdom that people used before central heating existed, before the modern energy grid made us forget that warmth was ever something you had to actively manage and produce yourself. For most of human history, keeping your family warm through a cold winter required knowledge, skill, and resourcefulness. The modern world took that responsibility away from us and handed it to utility companies, which is mostly fine until it isn't. Until the grid goes down, or the bill becomes unaffordable, or the gas line has a problem, or a winter storm takes out power for 3 days and the repair crews are overwhelmed. In those moments, knowledge is the difference between a frightening but manageable situation and a genuine crisis. And the people who come through those moments best are never the ones with the most money or the fanciest gear. They are the ones who knew what to do, who had thought about it ahead of time, who had a simple, practical plan and the basic supplies to execute it. That is what this video is about. Not fear, not panic, not some wild conspiracy about survival experts hiding secrets, just practical knowledge clearly explained for real people in the real world. Now here's what I want you to do with what you just learned. First, take it seriously. Don't watch this, think that's interesting, and then do nothing. The time to prepare for a heating emergency is before the heating emergency happens. Put together a basic kit, a bag of charcoal, a terracotta pot, a carbon monoxide detector, a few draft stoppers, keep it somewhere accessible. It costs almost nothing, and it could matter enormously. Second, share this video. I know some channels beg for shares constantly on every single video, and it gets exhausting. But this one genuinely deserves to travel. Think about someone in your life who lives alone, who is elderly, who is in a part of the country that gets brutal winters, who is on a fixed income and already stressed about energy bills. This information could protect them. A simple share, a text with the link, a mention to a neighbor that costs you nothing and could mean a great deal to someone who needs it. And third, drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from and what your biggest concern is when it comes to winter preparedness or energy costs. I read those comments. This channel is small enough that real conversations still happen here, and I genuinely want to know what topics matter most to the people watching. Your comment helps shape what we cover next, and it helps other people find this video when they need it most. We are going to keep doing exactly what we do here. Practical information, real economic context, no hype, no nonsense, no fake data, just useful knowledge for people who want to be genuinely prepared for whatever comes next. Stay warm, stay sharp, and we will see you in the next one.